Similarly to the lines together, shading can really help to bring everything together and add a lot of additional interest in the illustration. So this is actually something that you can either do on a separate layer, or you can do it directly in the illustration layer. I like to keep it on a separate layer mainly because I like to see before and after to judge whether I improve the illustration or not. So what I'm going to do here is to unlock my illustration layer, because I will be working with that. And just to keep things even tidier, instead of having the lines and the shading in the same layer, I will just keep the lines on their own. So that's the one that we've done before. And I will actually create one additional layer, and I'll call that one shading. So the reason that we need the illustration layer is because we will be working with the shapes that we established there. The lines layer can be locked, so I'm going to keep that one locked. And I'm going to start with the hair. So there I would like to have some shading here just to define the form of the shape. For this, we will be using this darker blue color that we already have in our swatches. And the way I'm going to do this is that I'm going to copy this shape from the illustration layer. Then I select the shading layer and I'm going to paste it there with Command Control F. So Command Control C to copy, and then Command Control F to paste. And because we have the lines underneath the shading at the moment, we can see how this duplicate object was added, but we will actually want to keep the shading layer underneath the lines. So that's where it should go. But also this object actually doesn't need any fill colors. So I'm going to select the fill color and set it to none. So now, even though that we have this shape here, it doesn't actually show anything. But what we are going to do is to draw inside this. So we only use this shape as a mask. I'm going to click on the Draw Inside option, or you can press Shift D twice. And then here I will be using these textured brushes that I also brought in from the brushes document. So if you don't have them yet, make sure you bring them in. And mainly I will be using this one right here. So I'll select that. I select the darker blue color. But you have to make sure that the color is actually assigned to the stroke color, because this is what we will be using with the brush tool. And then once that's selected, with the brush tool, if I start drawing, you can already start seeing these details appear here. I'm going to zoom back a bit and let's just draw a bit more of this detail here. And what I'm trying to create at the moment is just to have a flow for the texture that I'm using. So I'm following the shape of the hair, as you can see. And for this, actually, I'm going to turn off the Keep Selected and Edit Selected Parts options, because I want to keep building up this effect. So I keep drawing over it a couple of times until I'm happy with the way it looks. And I can fill in a bit more detail up here on the top. Like that. And since the Draw Inside mode turned our original hair shape into a clipping mask, we will be able to make changes to this, so we can refine where we want this shadow to show up. I'm going to press Shift D to escape from the Draw Inside mode, and then open up this clip group, select the mask itself, which will show up here. And then using the direct selection tool, we can adjust these anchor points and move them down to align to the detail where we want this shading to appear. Now, I'm not going to be extremely precise with this, but as you can see, very quickly it can be adjusted. And go all the way down there. And then this point as well can come down here. And already we have a good result. And maybe just this part here as well can come down a bit. And curve it down that way. So let's click outside. You can zoom out a bit and it looks already much more interesting. We can of course align this path a bit better if we wanted to. So we can just move this point further to the left. And that handle can be adjusted as well. So I like sometimes to create the texture first and then refine the mask. That's exactly what I'm doing here. So again, we can select this point, and just move it to the left a bit, like so. And that looks quite nice right there. Now it's up to you how you want to refine this, but I'm actually going to go even further following this shape. So I feel like this should go all the way down there. And this one also needs to come this way, just to completely follow along that other shape that we created. So you can keep tweaking this until you are happy with the result. I can select multiple anchor points as well by shift clicking on them and using the arrow keys on the keyboard, adjust them around. And yeah, I think that is looking even better now. Now I want to do the same thing here for the neck detail. So this shape I'm again going to copy and paste into the shading layer. Just make sure that you select the shading layer with the little circle next to it, and then press Command or Control F when pasting the shape in. Don't forget to remove the fill color of that shape. And in this case, I actually will also need this other shape. So I will copy that and also bring it here in the shading layer, paste it in. And I will even move these points out a bit. So I'm just going to extend it a little bit like that. Now I select these two shapes, and using the shape builder tool, which is Shift M from the keyboard shortcut, I actually only want to use that bottom detail there. So I will hold down the Alt key and remove every section that I don't need. So now we are left with that. I'm just going to show with a different color. So that's the shape that we are left with. I'm going to remove the color from it. So set the fill to none, then use the draw inside mode. And then with the brush tool, I'm actually going to use this darker red color and the same brush that we had before. And I'm just going to draw a line, and that's a little bit too thick or too big. So after drawing the line, we can actually resize it. Let's just open the path, select it, and reduce the stroke size down to maybe 0.25. There's a nice texture now. So let's just move this around a bit. I will use the arrow keys on the keyboard, move it in a place where it looks good, something like that. Now for the color of this, we actually want to use the skin tone and make that a bit darker. So I will shift click here and make this darker, maybe increase the saturation as well. So that looks like a good option. And I'm just going to duplicate this path and drag it along a bit just to add a bit more depth. And then I will duplicate it again. I want to increase the density here at the bottom, like so. And then one more time, maybe fill up a little bit more detail here on the top as well, like that. All right, so let's see now if we zoom back and turn off the draw inside mode. My main problem is that it got a little bit too dark, so it looks almost the same as the other color. There's not enough contrast between the t-shirt and the shading. So it should either be darker or a bit brighter. And in this case, I feel like a bit brighter will help. So I will increase the brightness of the color up. And let's see, if we click away, this looks much better. So let's see also from a distance. Yeah, I like how this looks.